Hello and welcome. Welcome to another Soul Stories because every soul has a story. I'm Lisa Warner. I am the author of The Simplicity of Self-Healing. That's the story that I wrote when I healed myself from cancer naturally. But today it's not about me. Today it is all about my friend, Kerri Hummingbird. Kerri is a medicine woman, and we are going to find out all about what that is and how she became a medicine woman. So, Kerri, welcome.
Oh, thanks for having me on the show. It's so great to see you in this context. And I just love playing with Lisa and in another place that we play. And it's just so much fun. So, yeah, thanks for having me on. And I'm pretty sure people are like, what does medicine woman mean? Right? Like, that's something to ask. Uh, it's a, it's kind of like when I started trying to put words to what I do, I went through many iterations. The first iteration was soul guide. I was like, I'm a soul guide. And then people were like, what is that? Why do I even need one of those? So that was that question. And then, a lot of people call me shaman, but I just felt like that is a little pretentious. And for a Western person to put that label on feels a little pretentious. And so I don't like to use that word. And so when I really felt in my heart, like, what am I actually doing? It's that I am redefining what medicine means. And, there's like a long history of medicine people around the world who have held powerful medicine long before Western paradigm came out with its, you can only use the word medicine in this context of doctors that we approve through this school that we put together what's the right way. And so medicine woman for me is all about inner medicine.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's what the native, all of the native tribes, they've always had a medicine man or, medicine person in the tribe. And it's never been about pharmaceuticals as far as I know. It's
Well, I
always
mean,
about the inner medicine and
sometimes it's
plant
about the plant.
medicine and the things that we find in nature, which are like
Yes.
God's medicine, right? Nature's medicine.
Yeah, and that's nature's medicine. Thank you for saying that. And so yeah, like our inner medicine, our path of mastery, how we navigate the world, and also are we able to communicate and integrate with different forms of life? Are we able to, the medicine people in traditional societies, they're the ones that can talk to the plants and ask the plants for wisdom to help somebody heal. They're the ones who are able to talk to the trees and talk to the animals. And so I like that. I think that fits. And in our society, we have a dearth of knowledge about nature. A lot of people think like, I like nature. I go on a hike in the woods. That's one level of
Right.
integration. That works. That does create peace. That is an introductory level of interfacing with nature. But there's like this whole other level that's like just under the surface. You just peel it back up and you can tune in. You find out that Mother Earth is just teeming with life and teeming with medicine and teeming with wisdom. It's just like right there. If you can get out of your own way of your brain and your mental chatter and your blah, 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 that goes on, and you can actually get in your body and connected with the earth and quiet enough to listen.
Mhm. I think that's a huge statement right there. Get in your body. I think, I've been talking a lot about that recently. And, um, people, I don't think that people even realize that they're not in their bodies. I mean, I know for sure I didn't for a long time. And when we're in our minds and that looping is going around and around and around, we're not in our bodies. Like we're completely ignoring the body. And then the body goes knock knock, hello, like there's an ache or a pain or oh what, and it's simply going, are you coming back or what? Like, hello?
And a lot of people don't realize also their resistance to being alive on this planet.
Yes, this planet is not a fun place to be for
It
the
it
most
can
part.
it can be tough, and so when we come from other dimensions of reality and then we come to this reality is very dense, and it requires you to exercise some muscle, some integrity, some discernment. It requires you to stand up, deal with difficult circumstances, deal with adversity. That's why the lotus is such a symbol for Buddhism, is because you're going to have to deal with adversity to get that lotus blossom, to get that flowering of your consciousness. You're not just going to show up and somebody goes, here's a pill to get that. It doesn't work that way. But humans have
They
tried to
say
make it
it
that way.
does.
It's like maybe briefly you could have an experience of samadhi on some plant medicine because somebody gave you a drug, but like that's not really what it's for. And, like a lot of people are out there and they'll be flocking to the plant, flocking right now, especially on Western society. A lot of people are flocking to, mushrooms, and flocking to, weed,
Ayahuasca.
ayahuasca, lots of different plants. And I understand the thinking behind it, right? It's like, I need to fix myself as fast as possible. So give me some plants. And that is an introduction, especially if you're doing an ayahuasca ceremony, it's an introduction to a deeper level of self awareness. But nothing is going to save you from walking the path. Like there's absolutely nothing that's going to save you from self awareness of your shadows, walking the middle way, embracing all of yourself, being aware of your less conscious behaviors, and changing and putting the muscle in to actually transform your life. Like nothing's going to save you from initiations and adversity. Except, you could distract yourself in a fantasy world, but you're not actually evolving. You're just simply in sort of a fantasy for a long time until you just get woken up out of it somehow. So but the only way is to actually dig in. Like you got to walk. You've got to walk. You've got to walk the path. And people that do that end up with blessings. And are there initiations? Is there adversity? Yes. But that's just life. That's just part of the whole experience. So when you can really accept that, you can get so present in your body. And I know that in your teachings, you talk about how don't run from the pain, like feel the pain fully, like be with that pain, feel it, let it move through you. It's got wisdom for you, it's got something to teach you. That is part of how we start to integrate and come into our bodies instead of just like from your chin up, because a lot of people are even blocked in their throats because they won't speak the truth. They won't speak what's going on. They'll hide from everything.
Mhm,
And so most people live from here up, which is basically just the brain, the monkey mind. And
mhm,
they think they're living, but it's like, no, you're just running from life. You're hiding, you're distracting, you're not actually present for the experience. And if you're not in your body, you can't feel the context around you either. And people around you notice if they are awake that you don't get it. I mean, so it's really obvious to anybody who's in the body and is present with a context that when you're not. So hopefully that inspires some people.
yeah.
Nobody likes that feeling. If somebody else knows what's going on and I don't see it.
Yeah, for sure. It's really, really difficult. I was very much in my body as a figure skater growing up, and I was very connected to my body. And then when I was made to go out in the world and try to figure out life, with very little awareness of like how how I was supposed to be making money, like it didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And I just got all in my head and like this isn't my soul path. I'm not here to just like have some soul sucking job and make money. it just got so deeply ingrained and entwined and entangled, and then pretty soon I was no longer in my body, and it took me a long, long time to understand that. But now it's like, oh, I see, said the blind man.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I know all this is because I also did that,
Right?
So
We all
I
have.
mean, yeah, and I was probably awake when I was smaller, because I was having visions of like the little green man in the corner of my room and like, mommy, there's a little green man hanging out in the corner of my room, just saying hello. My mom's like, that's not actually there. Well, I think it was, so I was seeing things as a young child. And even as a preteen, I was seeing like shadows moving on the wall, kind of like spirit dancing with me and showing me the potentials. And instead of like being excited by that, I was scared by it because of my conditioning that told me that that was not real, and that that this is reality. And even if that was real from my grandmother's Pentecostal Christian upbringing, that's just evil, stay away from that. And so there's a lot of conditioning that comes in that clamps down on our potentials and clamps down on our perceptual filters to filter out everything magical and only show us what's harsh and reality and work and hard. And that sucks. So, you
Yes,
know,
it does.
that's no fun. So when I started waking up, it was really at the bottom of the barrel. I had, like you said, you have to kind of lose yourself and then sort of try to fit into this model that everybody else is doing that is the right way. So I went to the really good Ivy League college. I studied my ass off. I got cum laude. I got really good grades. I was proud of myself. I still am. That was a great accomplishment. And then I went out to Silicon Valley to get a job, and that's where I started to lose myself because I was working for technology and as a technical writer, and I was really truly dry and boring work, and I was hidden behind a desk. And I'm a sage. I'm not meant to be hidden away in a corner, like never talking to people except about really dry, boring stuff that I don't care about. That's not, that was torturous. Did it make really great money? Sure. It also drove me partially insane. So I kept my connection open by doing artwork because I've always been creative. And so luckily for me, I never gave up that art for, most of my youth and my young adulthood and even into being a mom. Like I would go outside in our garden and I would paint and I would draw these really magical paintings, and I would feel the spirit of the tree and draw her, and you see the feminine form inside of her. And I had this way of opening and connecting that felt really good to me during some really dark times in my life, so that connection always stayed open. And I believe that's how I was able to make this transition after my sort of dark night of the soul at the end of my first marriage. I was able to kind of come access that. And I had enough of an opening that my spirit could come through all that darkness and say, this is the end of the rope, Kerri. It's time to leave this. This is a dead end. It's not going anywhere productive. The best thing you can do is leave at this point, which is what I did. So, I mean, I've gone through definite like dark nights, several of them in my journey. So if anybody else has gone through those dark nights, I totally understand. I mean, I've been through one when I had my kids. That was especially dark with my first child. Just I had huge depression and postpartum depression for a while. He was a colicky baby too, but it was just so dark, that initiation into motherhood. And and then I had another one at the end of my first marriage, another really deep dark night of the soul. And I've had subsequent other ones, throughout my journey of awakening. And so that dark night, that depression, that I don't want to be on this planet, I don't want to be in this body, I don't want to keep working so hard, I don't want to keep doing this, that is part of the experience of waking up. So if you're having that, you're not doing it wrong. Like, so I just want to say, you're not doing anything wrong. You're not messing it up. You're not like on the wrong path. That is the way. Like, if it's coming up for you, that is the thing that you need to move through. That is the healing. That is the self acceptance, the self love, the healing of your childhood or your ancestry or your former life. And who knows, it was all three for me. You know, when I went on my journey, I had to heal my past life self that came into this life feeling like like I failed and punishing myself, you know, for that failure by all these tremendously difficult experiences and not wanting to be here. And, you know, so I had to heal that. I had to heal my ancestry that were migrant farm workers. And man, they just had to work so hard just to get a little bit of safety and comfort, you know, and I had to deal with that, you know, I had to heal that with them, you know, work with my ancestors to let us open up more prosperity, more grace, more freedom, more, you know, more joy. And then I had to heal my childhood, you know, because I came in from this past life feeling like I needed to be punished or I had messed up or I was grieving, you know, really grieving the loss. And then came into a very challenging situation, 0 to 5. So, you know, when we start this journey, we're really coming into sacred witness of the whole life experience, not only this life, but everything that came before. And this is the time when we're healing it. So, of course, we're going to feel some bad things. Of course, we're going to be like, oh, I hate this life experience. I don't want to be in this body. It's heavy. You get me out of here. But, you know, but you're just going to come back, you know. That's the thing. Because I have committed suicide in other lifetimes. And there was a particularly dark times. And they just get brought back again. So there's no escape. You have to do the work. I mean, that you really got to move through it.
Yeah.
So you might as well just dig in and get some support.
Exactly. I remember being at that point. I was at the point of suicidal, you know, couple times, 2 or 3 times in this lifetime. I remember distinctly, like the first time that I was like really serious about it. I was laying in bed and was trying to figure out, all right, you know, like how am I going to do this? What am I going to do? And when I just got really, really quiet, I suddenly realized just because I leave my body doesn't mean that all my problems just vanish. I'm like, oh, I gotta deal with them now. Like I gotta fix them while I'm in the body. Like, oh,
Yeah, because once you're out of the body, you can't do anything with it.
exactly,
You pretty much have to come back in.
exactly. Yes,
And, you know, this is why we can be such a grace for our ancestors, because when we wake up enough to realize that some of what we're experiencing is traumas of the past that are stored in our ancestral DNA in our bodies, we can give such a service to our ancestors by helping them to use our bodies to heal it, right? So they can be free. And, you know, because some of them, they really don't want to come back in for another whole lifetime, but they do need to resolve the things that were unresolved that set patterns into motion.
exactly.
And, you know, this is why in inner medicine training, we work with the archetypal energies of serpent and jaguar and hummingbird and eagle and condor. And we'll just go to eagle and condor for a second, is that they're high flyers. They can see everything. So eagle and condor can see the biggest picture available. They can see how these patterns have rippled forward from certain decisions in your own life, and then they can extrapolate and they can see your former life. They can help you see like how all of these things are linked. They're like ripples in a pond. And so our ancestors, when they get outside the body, they look over this and they go, oh, dang, that was a big impact, right? Like I made that choice, I held that perspective, I did that thing, and then it just rippled forward in time. And they're powerless to change it at that point, except to just sit back and watch everybody else in their lineage like deal with that pattern and bring peace to it. And they're just kind of sitting back there like, I wish I could do something.
Mm,
And so when you give them a chance to, leverage your vessel, your physical body, which has the memory of that moment inside of you in your DNA, you can give them an opportunity to release and forgive themselves. By helping you, they help themselves, and then everything comes to peace. And I
mm,
remember I did that in one ayahuasca ceremony. I was guided in the West. The West is the direction of release. We do a lot of release in the West. We let go of a lot of things. And Jaguar helps us track the things through the smoky mirror that need releasing, and like, hey, this pattern you probably want to release, things like that. And so I was in the West, and in the North, we work with the ancestors. So like right as we were in that like last 45 minutes of bridging between the West and the North, I got this insight, Kerri, if you just like invite the ancestors to forgive it through your body right now, you would liberate them and you at the same time. And I said, oh, I like that idea. And so I said, okay, ancestors, use my body to forgive it. Just like take this moment, just forgive it, release it, forgive yourself, forgive the other person. And I will hold space for that. And I started being pummeled by ice bombs. like like I was sitting and having snowballs flung at me, like is what it felt like.
oh,
Because trauma is cold. And so when you release trauma, you'll often feel really cold and shivery,
mm,
or you'll feel like a cold blast of energy. And healing is warm. And so I was feeling all this cold. I was shivering. I had all these I was just being bombed by snowballs. And I was just like, oh my, this is a lot more than I anticipated. And that went on for probably 45 minutes to an hour. And then I was puking in my bucket, so it was rough. But at the end of the ceremony, I felt so much lighter. Like I felt freer. I felt more integrated. I felt like whole, like I was just glowing with wholeness. And I knew it's because me and my ancestors, we healed together. And so we brought us together, and we healed that separation. It was powerful. It was a really beautiful, and it was, a few hours of my life to be uncomfortable. It's worth it.
absolutely. We are here to break those ancestral patterns. I think most people don't really realize, like, it's in our blood, it's in our DNA. The grandmother was betrayed, and then the mother gets betrayed the same way. She has the chance to break the pattern, but she keeps going through the pattern. Then we get the chance to break the pattern, so we get betrayed, and then it's like, all right, are we gonna keep repeating the pattern, or do we get to break the pattern? And when we break the pattern, it breaks all the way up the chain from the ancestors. So this is why why we're here doing all of this.
Yeah. And what's really cool is that, you know, there is no time is sort of an illusion, because we're in the Pacha in the Andes Mountains. The Q'ero people, the medicine people call this the Pacha, is the intersection of time and space. And so in the Pacha, we experience time as a reality. But outside the Pacha, we don't. And this is the Pacha Mama. So it's the mama of time and space. So we get to experience what it's like to live in time, this construct of time. But outside of time, time is just a plaything. It's not really real. Only to us inside the time is it real. And so outside the time is your timeless soul. So when you connect with your timeless soul, this is the whole point of meditation, and all of this opening up your third eye and your crown chakra and all this kind of stuff, is so that you can tap into the energetics of your timeless soul, which is beyond time and has just like a little finger keeping you alive in time to have an experience of time, but it's outside of time. So when you connect with that one deeply, the more deeply you can connect with that soul, there's some more amazing things can happen, like time bending, like healing your past lives, healing your ancestry. And then anytime you do any of that work, it uplifts the whole timeline. Because, for example, like I did a lot of work in this lifetime healing the pivotal lifetime I had on the Trail of Tears, which was really painful for me, being a medicine person on the Trail of Tears and not being able to help my people. and seeing all the suffering and the tragedy and the whole destruction of a way of life that was very important to me. It was the fabric of my whole being. And seeing that destroyed so heartlessly was just crushing in terms of my perception of being on earth, and the trust I had for Mother Earth, and all of these things just were being destroyed within me, these deep foundational core beliefs. And I found myself asking in that lifetime, like, what's the highest service I could offer? And the highest service I could offer that I could come up with in that moment was, if I took my own life and I went through the death portal, I could take all the suffering with me.
Mm,
And so that was my choice. But also I wasn't there as a guide, for my people. So that was like, there's always two sides, to any choice. And no, every choice is going to have consequences, even if you think it's the best choice. And so my consequence was I wasn't there to hold the hand of my people, which is rough. They were left without their person that was supposed to be guiding them spiritually.
mm,
The upside is that I did help them, release a lot of pain and suffering that was just overwhelming everybody. It was really holding everybody down. So when we look at those kind of things, we can start to heal that. And in my life, in this incarnation, I didn't know that information until I was on my spiritual journey, which was probably around about 2013, 2014 was when I had my soul retrieval of that past life. And I started feeling and processing all the grief
mm,
that I had experienced without an ability to process it. Well, the more I've worked with that aspect and integrated that healing, that whole timeline is lifted. And as a result, this whole timeline is lifted. And
mm,
so when you work between lives to do healing work between lives as well, what you do is you up level the entire timeline and things move exponentially faster. And because there's so many people doing this on the planet right now, that's why things are moving so fast. So you might have wondered, that just hopefully answers that question, is like, why are things so fast? Like, things have just gotten sped up to the place where I can't even keep up. And that's because of all this deep work that so many of us have been doing to heal our ancestry, to heal past lives, and to heal our childhood traumas. So every work that we do in healing uplifts the vibration and the timeline, and it does create like an avalanche of healing and an up leveling of the vibration. So anyone who's doing that work is being lifted, and anyone who's related to that person is also partially being lifted to the person's ability to receive that healing. And then anybody who's not doing the work is lowering. So, you can kind of start to see like the disparity in people's perspectives, really stark contrast between people who have chosen to heal and people who have not chosen to heal.
yes, exactly. We also think that, those timelines, the one specifically that you're talking about with the Trail of Tears and how that way of life has been destroyed, was being destroyed. We often think of that as like something in the past that no longer exists, but those people are still here, they're still destroying and creating this Trail of Tears. But now here we are the ones who are ending that trail. It is time to stop the tears. It is time to restore the divine design and bring paradise back to this beautiful planet.
Yeah. And it's like, any medicine person or person that walks a spiritual path, we are here to bring peace, right? We are here to forgive. We are here to reconcile. We are here to bring wholeness and peace to any situation. But sometimes, as in my case, you die before you're able to do that. You die before you're able to come to peace on it. And you kind of like hovering out there and, watching everything go down. And so that was one of the blessings I share in my inner medicine book, is my reconciliation with this me that lives in the Trail of Tears, but also was my ancestor 7 generations back. So it was just like able to commune with this one who was able to access the divine self. And then because that one was able to access the divine self, was able to access me. And so like having this ability to work together, to heal that. And so I was able to bring my body to Cherokee Nation in Oklahoma,
Mm.
and to be in that space so that my ancestor, my past life self, was able to finally arrive, in Oklahoma, and able to finally see through eyes like this was where our people landed. Everything worked out okay. They're still here. There was destruction, but they rebuilt. Here I went to the museum for Cherokee history. Here was the the native costume that I wore, and it's like, it's still here. It was preserved, and it wasn't lost. And so there was like a deep peace inside of me, that part of me to see through this version of me's eyes, like, wow, okay, everything is okay. And there was this section I wrote where I just turned over the the typing to that one with that one from the Trail of Tears, my great 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 grandfather, who wrote, I am just, my heart is bursting with joy that my granddaughter, 6 generations from my life, has this spark alive in her heart still, and is lighting it ablaze, and it's going out there in the world. Like, my heart is joyful. And so there was this moment of like, just not only just forgiveness, but total gratitude that that the medicine that he put into place to plant the seed of my existence, it worked, and so at a time when it could be received, here it is, fully alive and ablaze. So I mean, I think it's amazing, right, when we can start to look at our lifetimes, our existence, as a series of lessons and lifetimes, and that it's not just one and done, but we have all of these lifetimes that we get to play with and integrate.
Exactly. Wow. That's amazing. I love that story. Thank you so much for sharing that. So what was growing up like? Where did you grow up, and what was that like? Like,
So
to
in this
set up the
lifetime,
whole story.
yeah. So I grew up in, obviously I chose to reincarnate into my existing family line, right? So, um, and I was born in Dallas, Texas. I live in Texas now, in Austin.
Mm.
But I was born in Dallas, and I lived there for a couple of years. My mom was a very spicy person. My mom is a spicy person of questions everything, grew up questioning everything in Midwest Texas. Like, I don't believe you. How come I can't go in the bathroom with all the color? I don't understand why. I like color. I like rainbows. How come I can't go in the color bathroom? I don't understand. I don't want to go in the white bathroom. That one doesn't have any color. So like, didn't understand like why things were the way they were, in Midwest Texas. And my grandmother was very, very religious and devoted, and 5 days a week in Pentecostal church, and super into the Holy Spirit. And so all of these forces converge. And my mom leaves that place because she's like, I can't stand the hypocrisy. And she goes to Dallas, and she meets this fun loving guy who's like a hippie, and he's just really fun. And he's also an accountant, so he makes good money. And he's like wild and fun. And she marries him. And then she finds out he's got a lot of mental problems. And she goes, this is not a place to put a baby, like, that's a bad choice. And then she was told she couldn't have babies. So she's like, okay, great. And then she got pregnant with me. So obviously I was like, nope, that's where I'm landing. Bam. And, so I came in, and my mom shortly realized, like, I don't want my child to be molested. I don't want my child to have issues. He's got some serious issues. He's a wonderful human, but he's just wounded, and he's not going to be good for my daughter. So she married somebody else who she thought was going to be an upstanding individual. And from 1 year old to 5, we went through a living hell. He was an alcoholic. He was very violent. He tried to throw my mom off a third-story balcony. He was just a very violent person. And also because he was so insecure and so weak, so inside. So he would use his masculine power to overpower, to control or dominate out of a sense of weakness, and so my mom was learning a lot of lessons about relationship with men, and I was along for the ride, and that was intense.
Wow.
And we moved up to New England, where my mom met her third husband, who ended up being my dad, who was an amazing person. Just like it made up for all the other ones. He was a great dad, and really just a beautiful unconditional rock of love. And he was strict and stern sometimes, but he was always funny too, and just really supportive. And he did his work. He always did his work to come to forgiveness and to reconciliation and to have conversations. So just an amazing human. And that was her partner for like 45 years until he passed away in 2017. And that was my dad.
Mhm.
So, you know, I had this really unique experience of having three different examples of mother father relationship.
Mhm.
And so when I chose my mother father relationship, you know, when you get married, you usually play out the pattern that is unhealed.
Yeah.
And so I married somebody who was never physically violent with me, but the dynamics in that of the arguing of the masculine and the feminine of my mom's second marriage, that was playing out, you know. So 20 years of like, how do I bring peace to conflict? How do I stop lighting the flame again? Because I'm spicy too. So how do I stop throwing gas on that flame? How do I, and I can't please my way through it. So how do I stop being fake and just pleasing because I just don't want any argument and just want to keep the peace? And I'm losing myself in that. So how do I speak my truth and not have conflict? And so I mean, like the conversation around that was pretty much our whole marriage was like, how do I just not be provoked? And how do I just have peace? And I had to learn that the way through to peace was through the provocation, was to be embracing it and to love myself and to bring peace to myself, and to have uncomfortable conversations directly with the person. Instead, I went to psychotherapy and I had 2 decades of conversations, every week about how awful he was, or this was, or what I didn't like this or that. So I played in the triangle of disempowerment, for the first part of my life. I was the victim. Somebody was my perpetrator if they didn't do what I wanted. And then they were my rescuer if they did. So my first husband would flip flop between, rescuer and perpetrator, and he would do the same to me. So we were like both engaged in that game. And we just didn't have the tools. Like we didn't have the knowledge or the tools to deal with that. Nobody handed us the Four Agreements book. I
Right.
gotta say, I wish they had, that book was out by then. So I wish they had handed me a copy of that and said, you need this, read this book. Because I was open,
Mhm.
I just didn't have the tools. And I wasn't being true to myself. I was being what I thought he wanted in order to be loved and accepted.
Exactly.
And when I became a mom, the mother, I mentioned that I went through a dark night of the soul. It was like I had so much emotion and so much, like my empathy just opened up wide and I couldn't stuff it down anymore. Like I'd been stuffing it down most of my life. Like having a baby, like I couldn't stuff it down anymore. And so all this grief was coming up that I had never felt, that I had just repressed. And like my son, my first son just came through like a blast of light, from the 12th dimension, and just went bing, and then so all of my shadows just went, yeah, so it was really tough. And yeah, it was a huge initiation. So I had to learn how to, hold all that power that was coming in, that power of mother, that the bigness. And my husband wanted a small, skinny girl. He wanted a maiden. And I was turning into this like large mother, like, and he didn't fit, because he wasn't growing to match, So we couldn't keep that paradigm of like the small little woman and the big man, like it was falling apart. And I just kept trying to put it back. And I finally couldn't. So I had to go, I'm just big and I'm just emotional and I'm tapped in and I'm a large energy body and I can't hide that anymore. And I need to find a place where that's okay. So where it's okay for me to speak my truth, or okay for somebody that can hold the amount of anger that I was feeling,
Mhm.
somebody that could hold space for the amount of grief. I needed somebody that could go deeper. And so, yeah, I had to go deeper within myself. I couldn't stuff myself down anymore in these tiny little compartment. I had to expand. And so that marriage just had to go by the wayside. I was like, dang, I never wanted to do that because of my own upbringing.
Mhm.
But, if people don't choose to grow, you can't force them. And I didn't know what I was doing anyway. I was totally insane at that point in my life. I was just so inundated with pain that
Mhm.
I just needed a space to go. And so as soon as I left, I found my first teacher, and then it started like the avalanche of like all my teachers rushed in, just one after the other, and some of them two at a time. I was like, I had lots of support, and it's been 12 years of radical acceptance, healing, excavation, clearing the hollow bone. And now I'm teaching this stuff. And I was not this. You ask my 30-year-old self if they ever thought I would be this, she would say, I don't think I'm capable of that. I don't know. I'm an artist, or I don't, I don't know how to do that. She would have no clue about how to be me at all.
Mhm. Mhm. Oh my gosh. That's amazing. And it really is like I always say all healing is self-healing. It's like we have to be willing to go in and sit inside ourselves and look at the pain, look at the trauma, and just start allowing and releasing and being with it and holding compassion for our younger selves and starting to recognize that this world is set up to be the trail of tears. There's a lot of money to be made on our suffering, and so the external world isn't set up to make it all beautiful here. That's our job now. That's why we're here, is to start making this world a better place, and the only way we can do it is through ourselves, to make ourselves that hollow bone, to clear out all of the trauma and drama that has been imposed on us for thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah. And it's like, I didn't realize, maybe I had therapists telling me this at the time, but it didn't sink in. I didn't realize that everything that I was so uncomfortable with my father of my children was a reflection of my shadow
Mhm.
that I didn't want to own. Because I had this idea of myself that I was like the golden one, I was, just could do no wrong. And, I liked that version of me. But the fact of the matter is, I was very spicy and always have been, and very capable of like manipulating circumstances and provoking people into uncomfortable feelings. I mean, I'm totally capable of all those things that he was doing as a reflection of me and my shadow that I didn't want to own. So when I finally, along the way of this path, I was working with amazing teachers. I've worked with some of the luminaries of the shamanic arts field. I mean, just amazing people. And I've been able to layer by layer peel back, to see more and more of the truth of myself and to own it. And even in the relationship with my former spouse, it was very contentious at first. Like that second relationship my mom had, there was no very physical violence, but there was a lot of emotional abuse of each other. And so when I was peeling that back and doing healing, the only way I could heal that, because it was very like the children were being used, to punish each other and all the stuff they say don't ever do. It was happening.
Mhm.
And my kids today are still recovering from that. It was very painful.
Mhm.
So I had to heal that relationship and the contentiousness there, and the fighting back and forth, and the all the games that were being played. I had to heal that by going within myself. It's like, okay, where am I triggered by what he just said today? Where am I triggered by what he did? Where am I triggered by, you
Mhm.
know, all of that, right? And then just heal myself and see the truth of my own like shadow that was also doing that in a different way, right? So I had to own it and heal that. And after a while of doing that, he just sort of dropped off and disappeared.
Mhm.
And as a matter of fact, changed his number. Like, I never want to hear from you again. So I was like, okay, cool. So, you know, so we're good, because sometimes when you can't get out of those karmic entanglements, we've had past lives together, that we were working out in this life, right? Like dislike for each other, like intense dislike, because of these karmic entanglements that in this particular lifetime, if you only looked at this context, you would go, why are they having a problem? Because they're everything else is fine. They have fun together, they go travel together, they have similar ideas about life, like they should get along just fine, like you would think.
Mm,
But it's when you expand the picture, like I was talking about, and you start to ask, like, where else have we had lifetimes? Like, what's the unfinished business here between us? What is it that we need to come to peace to? And what is it that needs resolution through these arguments that we're having, or through these entanglements, this war that's happening between us? What needs healing, from these past lives? And so you only really need one person doing that work to resolve it.
mm,
And then the other person, if they still want to stay in those patterns, they'll just find somebody else to play with, but at least you're clear. So anybody out there who's like, I've got something like this going on, I can't make that person change. I really want them to change. I want them to come to the table. I want them to forgive. I want them to, yeah, I did too. And what I found was that they'll either do that or not, but what you can liberate yourself from it by doing the inner work to heal. And the way you're healed is that you can feel grateful for that person. Like, I feel immensely grateful for the father of my children for teaching me how to stand in my power, use my voice, have compassion, be patient, listen to the other person's perspective. These are all things I learned, not directly in that relationship, but through the process of disentangling myself from that relationship. I learned so many powerful lessons, and I learned how to bring peace to a family system, even if the other person's not willing. And that is beautiful. That's very powerful teaching. And so I'm like, namaste, for helping me learn these lessons, even that wasn't your intention. That's what happened as a result. So we can always be grateful. And when we get there, we can release it and it's complete.
yeah. Yeah, I love that. I talk about, um, it's like everything is energy. And, we've never been taught to notice energy. And when we get traumatized by life, it's sort of like, we're driving along and somebody comes and hits us with their car. Well, energetically, you don't see the dent that's left, but these things leave an impression. It's like a dent, literally. And so if any dent in our energy field gets filled in by the opposite, like it's like puzzle pieces. It's like if the dent looks like this, then you got to have something that looks like that that fits, because our aura has to be full. So if we are filled with dents, then the people that have the puzzle pieces that match the dent, they come, and then there we are. And now there's going to be an issue because neither one is supposed to be dented. But, so it's like the healing is what we do when we smooth out that dent. And if we do it and that's why it works for one, like if only one person is doing the work, that's why it still works. Because if you smooth out your own dent, they no longer fit into the dent. So either they have to change so that, it smooths out, or they're like, no, I'm not going to change. And then they just fall away because they don't fit in the dent anymore. It's like the puzzle pieces no longer fit together.
Yeah. And for a long time, I would even make prayers on the mountaintop. Please reconcile our family. Please help him come back to peace. Please help us. Like, I don't want to live the rest of my life with this conflict going on. Like, please help him. And I realized after a while that was fruitless because everybody has their own choice.
Right.
And, you know, sometimes people need to keep experiencing those patterns in order to learn from them. And so they're not done with a lesson. They're not done with the curriculum, and they can't just come along because you're ready. And so that was kind of arrogant of me to think that, because I'm ready and because I'm over it, like let's heal, let's talk. That was some of my arrogance. It's like, no, he's just not ready. Like, he's moving through whatever he's moving through. And all I can do is send him love and prayers for his well-being, as a soul. And that's what I do. I just, every so often, I just go, okay, sending you blessings, and I'll realize one more lesson he taught me, and I'll be like, oh, thanks for this lesson. So I have conversations with his soul, and he'll tell me some things. So like that's why this happened is because you did this in this past life. And also I have this kind of pieces of information that I get. Oh, okay, I see that. I'm sorry. I got the lesson now. Thank you very much. you know, One of the lessons with that relationship was, and I guess in the former life, I think it was the Trail of Tears, but he betrayed, he betrayed me in some way. And so I cursed all his ancestors.
Oops.
Well, that didn't work out so well for me as I became hooked up with him and then we had children. Dang, that was a dumb decision. So then I cleared that, because I realized my mistake. But like some of those things are like set in motion already, so now my kids are still dealing with some of that.
Oh,
It's like, oh man, sorry about that. That was a bad one. But they come in knowing that they're going to deal with that too. So you can't really beat yourself up too much. But you
exactly.
just go, okay, I see now the effects of cursing someone's ancestors. I won't do that again.
Yeah, oops.
Dang it. That was a bad choice. They say when you damn another, you damn yourself. And that's kind of how one way that could play out. Because
Right.
this isn't just one lifetime at a time. This is like the universe remembers what lesson you need. It's never forgets. That's why leaving doesn't make any sense because you're just going to have to come back and do it again. So you might as well just face the music.
Exactly. I mean, because we are the eternal soul. We are the soul here in the physical body. It's like we don't just stop being the soul. So what we do, we are doing as the soul as well. So it's like this is why it doesn't just get resolved automatically if we step out of our body. It's like, well, we can leave the body behind, but you're still the soul. You've still done the stuff. Like it's still non-physical, so you still got the dents in your energy field. You still got the light body that's carrying the stuff. So you're gonna come back into the physical body to rectify it at some point. So just do it now. Like,
Yeah. And I just had one more thing I wanted to say about that is that also, this is why we can, instead of like speaking badly about our vessel and personality, we
mm,
could have some compassion for that personality and vessel that's temporary, that's coming in to help us with our soul lessons. And as we're making them go through all of this painful stuff for us,
mm,
like I think it deserves a little bit of thanks and gratitude and compassion rather than like so much down talking about the ego. It's like the ego lets us have this experience on this planet, and it really carries the brunt of all of our soul decisions. So a little gratitude and compassion for the vessel, I think, goes a long way.
exactly. There's so much, body shaming on this planet, and it's like if you're not this big and a size 2, then you're horrible and ugly, and like all of these subliminal messages that are always sent out, and talking about the meat suit, and it's like these are sacred vessels. We are sacred beings, but we're just not treated that way. So then we have all of these wounds because we've been told that that we're useless, or we're this, that, or the other thing, rather than the sacred beings of light that we truly are.
Yeah, and this is our piece of Mother Earth that we get to tend. Talk about being gardeners. This is our body is the first piece of earth that we're given to tend and to take care of, and the egoic personality that comes along with the body and that has all of our curriculum built into it. It's like, don't blame the ego. That's your soul curriculum. I
Mm,
think that's what you're here to face. So like, don't be angry with it. That's your curriculum. So yeah, bring some love and grace to it.
exactly.
I hope people stop ego bashing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it really is, love is the answer to every question. We have to be able to love our bodies in order to heal our bodies. We have to be able to love ourselves in order to heal ourselves.
This is true.
Wow. Kerri, I love everything you shared today. It's such a beautiful story. So many incredible nuggets in there for people. I know I grabbed a few myself. Just
Yay.
so much nice, you know, clarity about, how the ancestry goes, and that was really great. Thank you so much for sharing all of that.
Thanks for inviting me to come and talk with you and share what wanted to come through. I mean, I can spin a yarn, it's part about being a medicine person too, is being able to tell a really good story. That's spider medicine, weave that web and it's important to be impeccable with our word, right? I mean, that's why we learn the 4 agreements and yep, because we are creating reality with our words. And I hope today I created some beneficial outcomes with my web weaving.
Yes, for certain. This is why we share these stories, because there are so many nuggets in every story. We learn so much about ourselves when we hear somebody else's story. So thank you so much for that. And Kerri, I know you've written a book, and so tell us about the book and where do people find your book?
Yeah. So, well, there's a couple of books people might be interested in.
Hey.
This is the Inner Medicine book. So you can find that on Amazon. And this
Beautiful.
has more stories of my medicine path. And this is a medicine teaching. So this is a medicine wheel. I architected it from the south, the west, the north, and the east. So to bring you through an embodiment or an initial acquaintance with the medicine wheel. So that's this. And has a lot of good stories in it. And this is the book that's been out there for I don't know 200 and something week, almost 4 years. Almost 4 years this summer. It's been an international bestseller. The Second Wave, Transcending the Human Drama. This one I channeled. This was the one that started really catalyzing things for me. And White Eagle is my oversoul, and so this is channeling my oversoul's wisdom about the planet, using me as an example. And has some great contributions from Lisa Barnett, who some of you know for Akashic Records stuff, and Jennifer Huff and Gary Stewart. So this one's, a lot of people find a lot of value in it. And the last one, and this was the one I spent 2 years writing. This was a lot of medicine journeys for this book, is Love is Fierce, Healing the Mother Wound. So I healed my relationship with my mom by writing that book, and I now have the relationship with her that I always wanted. But you got to do the work, you got to dig in.
Yeah.
And she's read that book and she's like, okay.
Oh.
You read the cover and you think, oh my gosh, how could your mom ever accept that? You read it and you see, like, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for all the lessons from my mom. And that's how you heal. You get grateful about it.
Yeah. Beautiful. So anybody who's watching, just check out the show notes, and the links will be in the show notes. And Kerri, if anybody wants to work with you, how do they reach out and find you?
Yeah. Well, my website is kerrihummingbird.com, KERRI, hummingbird.com. And if you do /inner medicine, you'll get on my list and you'll get a whole meditation pack of inner medicine meditations, grounding and clearing and shielding. And there's a great one that helps you discern what's mine and what's theirs, in case you're having those issues of like figuring out like what's my stuff and what's this person's stuff. There's like a whole meditation to guide you and help you clear up the excess energy. So that's all in there. So kerrihummingbird.com /inner medicine. And yeah, I mean, I teach inner medicine training, and it's a very deep, long process. So it's not a quickie. It's 18 months from start to finish. And it's deep and it's profound and it's life changing. And I also do workshops and fire walking and I mean, trips to Peru. I mean, there's a lot of things I do, and like little workshop series and stuff if you want a place to get started. But yeah, I like to go deep. So I'm into complete rewiring. That's what I like to do.
Exactly. I
don't like to just do a little, buffet item. I want to do like the whole thing, so.
Oh, fantastic. So make sure you check out her incredible offer. Get some free gifts from Kerri on her website. That is beautiful. Wow. Thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, I like to support however I can, as you do as well, right? That's why you do this podcast. It's like, you know, we can help out, we can all help out a little, and if we all help out a little, somebody gets to the place where they can sign up for one of your programs or sign up for one of my programs, and they have the resource and the bandwidth to do that. And sometimes you just need a lot of help before you can get to the place where you can commit to that. So these offers from you and from me and from everybody else, they're really helpful.
Indeed. We are here to dream a new world, to create a beautiful new reality on this planet that is designed as the Garden of Eden. It is designed to be this beautiful paradise. And we are here to take steps to heal all of the traumas that are preventing it from being this incredible paradise. So this is the inner work that we're all here to do in this lifetime. So, Kerri, thank you so much for everything that you are doing in this lifetime to help us heal and find our own inner medicine.
Thank you. Blessings, everyone.
Thank you all for watching again to our soul stories, because every soul has a story. So make your story a great story, because you can. Until next time, thanks for watching, everyone. See you on Soul Stories next time. Bye for now.